Private Investigations for the Missing live virtual fundraiser. It is June 11th at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is the time we were scheduled to do this, and here we are. I am Tim here with Lance. Lance, how are you?
I am fantastic. It's so amazing to be back in the saddle here, riding this insane horse again to the burning barn, which I think is very apropos for the times. But hey, you know, it's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's been a long time since we've done this, since we've gone on late and gone on live and actually had a fundraiser for this fantastic nonprofit. Tim, how are you? I know we were a little late. I want to make sure we just get right into the groove here.
No, I'm doing great over here. I'm trying to change the name of the thing from saying welcome to our live show to welcome to the PIs for the Missing fundraiser. So if I look distracted, that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, no problem.
So ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a lot of fun tonight. We are speaking about the nonprofit Private Investigations for the Missing. And if you have not heard of it, you should check out investigationsforthemissing.org. That is the website. We have some great guests joining us tonight. In a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Julie Murray, who is Maura Murray's sister. And Maura Murray's case is being investigated by the investigators at PIs for the Missing. And so we're going to have a great conversation with her. We're also going to speak with Prosecutor Bobby Tagavi in a little bit. And he's got a really interesting background working on the Golden State Killer Task Force. And then we're going to speak with Dr. Trace Sargent, Lance, who works with search dogs. And we saw a glimpse of one of her dogs just briefly before we went live. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And then finally, Lance, we're going to speak with private investigators Lou Barry and Greg Overacker. And that is going to be a little bit like old friends meeting up, because we've known those guys for a long time. But we're going to talk about some very specific things in that segment as well. This is going to be a great night. If you would like to donate, you can do so on the website, investigationsforthemissing.org. There is a donate now button right at the top. And actually, we'll put that in the chat here. Yeah, right here live. So thank you very much for joining us, everyone. This is going to be a lot of fun. Okay, Lance.
Yes.
And do you want to, should we tell the story real quick about Private Investigations for the Missing and sort of describe its purpose? And I do want to mention our board members, our fellow board members. Bruce Maitland is the chairman of the board. We've got James Baker, we've got Lou Barry, Michelle Kazuba, and our newest board member, Steve Galinsky. And of course, Lance and I are also board members at PIs for the Missing. And this nonprofit was founded in 2018 by Bruce Maitland because his daughter, Brianna Maitland, went missing in 2004 in Montgomery, Vermont. And he was inspired to create this nonprofit to help fund investigations done by reputable private investigators for families of missing loved ones. These cases take a lot of work. They take a lot of time, and private investigators are very expensive. So the private investigators that we work with donate their time pro bono for these investigations in this cause, and they get paid back expenses only. So that is the nonprofit. That is what you are funding. You are funding the investigation of cold cases by reputable private investigators.
Well said. Well said. I'll just add a couple more things to that. We see it all too often where an investigator will come in. We just saw it with the Nicholas Marion disappearance. We just saw it. The family wasn't even provoked in asking. Like, we didn't even ask them the question, how did it work out with the investigator? They said, we had an investigator, but it went nowhere, and we're still paying that investigator back. They're still paying the investigator for information that they probably could have gotten on their own. Now, that's not the type of investigator that Private Investigations for the Missing wants to contract. They're licensed private investigators. Unless you're Greg Overacker, and you eat a gas station hot dog once a week when you're working on these cases, all expenses are paid for, and the family has that financial release. And because we're getting these investigators agreeing to do this, wanting to do this, immediately they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it because they want to make a difference. So you've kind of already scraped off the top. You've gotten to like the meat of the stew here. You've gotten to what's important, and the more that we can raise for this nonprofit, the better. It's been far too long. I keep saying it since we've done a fundraiser. So hopefully this is going to be one of many that we're going to do this year. And the links are there if you want to donate. Seriously, like $1, $2, whatever. That's going to cover Greg Overacker's gas station hot dog. Maybe he can afford to get like a gas station tuna sandwich or something.
Help him out. We are having a little fun with that, but that is true. When Greg submits his expenses, it is typically a gas station hot dog or something like that. He doesn't have a lot of time to stop and eat better food.
Yeah, he's not going out there for the culinary experiences. He's going out there to solve a case. I also want to say that the people who are in the lobby right now, we're going to let you all in. We're going to let you in staggered. So there's a process here. We appreciate you being there, and yeah, we'll have you on in just a few moments. And hi everybody! Okay. My goodness, what do we have? 1,000 people watching? 69 people watching.
Very cool. Thank you very much. Yeah. And I do just want to give a quick shout out and big thank you to Lorden Arts' Secret Studio family. They donated about $250 earlier today. And that, of course, is our friend John Lorden of Brain Scratch, and his channel is called Lorden Arts on YouTube. So big thank you to anyone over there who donated. Okay, Lance, I think we are going to let Julie Murray in right now. All right, here we go.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Julie, how are you?
Hey guys.
How's it going?
How are you?
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
I'm doing well. How?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, it's doing fantastic to see you.
Yes, you too. Sorry, I had it on my phone because I was a little unclear when I was going to come in, but I just muted that, so we're good to go. Sorry about that.
No, we're sorry that the schedule never actually made it to you. Well, there was one, but it got lost in the shuffle or something. So we apologize for that, and we're just grateful to have you on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us, Julie. We wanted to ask you a bit about your sister's case. Of course, it's a very well-known case, but for anyone listening who has not heard of your sister and her case, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, first I'd say, where have you been? No. So my little sister, Mara Murray, she was a 21-year-old nursing student at the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. And on February 9th, 2004, she emailed her professors about a death in the family. There was no death. She did a number of things that don't make a whole lot of sense even today, 21 years later. She took out some money, basically emptied her bank account, picked up some liquor, and didn't tell anyone, but headed north in her beat up black Saturn sedan, destination unknown. And her last phone call was at 4:37 p.m. And then there's about 2 hours of time where there was no activity. And then at 7:30 p.m., a witness notices a vehicle off the side of the road in this small town called Woodsville, New Hampshire. And she looks out the window and she sees this car. It was cold, it was dark, so she called 911. A bus driver drove by and stopped and asked the driver if she needed help, and the driver declined. We have to assume that the driver was Mara, although people fight about that online all the time. Um, and then when the police showed up minutes later, Mara was gone. She's never been heard or seen from again. No bank activity, no cell phone activity. And so for 21 years, we've just been fighting for answers and trying to make some progress and figure out what happened.
And also in that time, you've been fighting through rumors and the online speculation, and really the Mora's story might be the start of or among the first stories that started web sleuthing. And
Yeah.
and then you had to like grapple with that, and Tim and I were a part of that, and we didn't, it was something that just became it became its own entity. How did you come to understand and harness that?
Well, for those that don't know, Mara went missing the same week Facebook launched. So this was way back in 2004. So it was before what we know social media to be today. Um, People really didn't know what social media was. It didn't really exist. People didn't have smartphones. They weren't constantly on their phones. There was no GPS, Google Maps, those type of things. So at first, it was sort of foreign to us, like, what is this thing? And then we quickly realized that we could reach a widespread audience with just a click of a button. And I'm not talking just in that area specific, I'm talking across the country and across the world. So social media is a very, very powerful tool when used for good. But as Lance alluded to, it can also, cause misinformation to spread like wildfire, and a lot of speculation. And when you look at Mara's case, there are so many unanswered questions. And so what people want to do is solve a mystery. So they try their best. Most have very good intentions. And it's been helpful. I will be the first to say that social media has definitely helped my sister's case. So you take the good with the bad, and I'm fully immersed in social media. I was reluctant at first, but I am out there doing it now, and it's been great for connecting and meeting other people.
Yeah, you are an absolute force on social media. A really great TikTok follow. If you've got any questions about the case, I love hearing you respond to the questions that people will ask on TikTok. And you also launched your own podcast, Media Pressure. Can you tell us about that and your decision to launch that?
Yeah, so in the same vein as social media being great, you make connections, and I made connections with other family members in similar situations. And one of those people were Sarah Turney. And if you don't know who Sarah Turney is, she created her own podcast about her missing sister, Alyssa. And she's a force to be reckoned with, and you both know her, and you know that about her. So she approached me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about doing your own podcast about Mara?" And I was like, "Nope, never thought of that." Where do I start? What do I do? I have no idea. And she sort of guided me through that. And yeah, I created Media Pressure with a lot of guidance from Sarah and others, and it's been great. And the main purpose of Media Pressure was to focus the narrative on Mara, and have it be victim centered, and give her some of that humanity that's sort of been stripped away with the constant coverage. And I think we did that, and I'm super proud of it. It did bring in some new leads, and people still listen and still comment. So it was a big undertaking, but I'm very glad that I did it.
What went into choosing that title? I've secretly wanted to ask you this for a long time because it's a great title.
Yeah, well, that was all Sarah. So, as you know, Sarah has been pressuring not only the authorities in her case, but the local media, and she's worldwide. And she said, media pressure makes change. It makes people move, especially people in public officials. And she saw that firsthand, and I saw that firsthand as well. And so I thought it was an absolutely perfect name. But all the credit to Sarah for that.
Very cool. So where is the investigation at this point into your sister's case? And I understand that the investigators from PIs for the Missing have been helping out a bit. I'm just curious your take on how that's been going and where the investigation is.
Yeah, my family is so grateful for the work that Private Investigations for the Missing has provided us, the whole team, with PI for the Missing. When you're thrust into a situation like this, you're just regular people and you don't have that body of knowledge. You're not an investigator. You really don't know what you're doing as a family member. You're just trying to do your best. You're trying to do the next thing. And so for a long while, it was just my family and volunteers trying to figure out, what can we do? And then when Lou stepped in and PI for the Missing stepped in, we had sort of more structure. And that's exactly what we needed. And I cannot say enough about the work that PI for the Missing has done, not only for my family, but so many other families. And the key thing about it is it reminds not only my family, but the people that loved Mara and support my family, that somebody cares and there's still hope. Like someone is actively following up on leads. And that little tiny bit of hope does wonders for families like mine.
And what is it about the approach that PIs for the Missing has, like especially when Lou first contacts you? Like, because to be honest, like I'm terrified of Lou. So when I hear people say, "Oh, Lou, so he's like a teddy bear," I ask myself, what do I need to do to experience that? So what is it about that initial approach that is important?
Well, what I love about Lou the most is he's no nonsense. No nonsense. He doesn't want any fluff, he doesn't want any speculation. He just wants the facts. And that's what I need, especially in a case like Mara's, where there's so many voices and theories and just rabbit holes. Lou's sort of able to use his experience and his investigative skills to sort of cut out all of that noise and just focus on what makes sense and what the next logical step is without being influenced or biased by all of the stuff on the periphery. And that's exactly what we need for Maura's case. But Lou he is a teddy bear. He probably will hate that I'm saying this, but the first thing he asked me is, "How's your dad? How are you?" Like he cares. He cares about the people that are most impacted. And the last thing is, "What are you doing this weekend?" Or take care of yourself. Things like that. It's those small little things that make a huge difference. And I'm just so lucky to have Lou in my corner.
Oh, that is great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I saw on your TikTok recently you and Curtis talking about the Maura Murray Scholarship. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, we decided to do something positive to honor Mara, and we couldn't think of anything better than to do something about her career at Whitman Hanson High School, where she was a legend and she broke all the records. And so we decided the best thing to do is a scholarship, and so we've done it. I can't remember how many years now, but it's been very well received in the community. It's great to see these student athletes, get up there and crush it in the classroom and crush it on the track, just like Mara did. And I actually just got a thank you note, real sweet thank you note from the the woman that received the award this year. So it's just, keeping Mara's legacy alive in a positive way.
That's really great to hear.
Yeah.
And I also saw that there were going to be playing cards passed around prisons with Mora's photo was going to be part of that. Is that going to happen soon?
Yeah, so this is a new development, and I actually didn't even know about it. So someone let me know that Mara will be included in the second round of playing cards. I think they originated from Season of Justice, and they'll be circulated in the prisons within New Hampshire. And it's just another tool. It can't hurt. Get people talking. We know that somebody out there knows something, so we're very excited about what that may lead to.
Well, you are getting a lot of support here. I don't know if you're looking at the chat that's happening, getting a ton of support here, and people are asking where to donate. So I'm just going to flash on the screen real quick, a little donate link. So that's where you're going to go to donate. And you just mentioned the playing cards, which I think is a really brilliant idea. And that's been something that was invented, right, by social media. Would you say that that's a social media thing, that if social media wasn't around, or is that something that I guess is more like content creator driven?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know where it originated from, but I agree with you. It's a great idea. It just keeping these faces in the public consciousness is so huge. And people ask me all the time, "What can I do? What can I do?" Aside from donate to PI for the Missing right now, you want to speak the missing person or unsolved cases, speak their name, share their story, share a flyer. It's not a big ask, but it does so much. It's so powerful. So I think these playing cards will help in a little bit of a different way in the prison systems, but it certainly won't hurt.
And how is your father doing?
Oh, he's great.
Good.
He's still plugging. He's still in the fight, keeping healthy. My dad was a marathoner, so he's got that built-in life insurance. So it's serving him well at this stage of life.
That is excellent
That's
to
great.
hear.
Yeah, great to hear. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for joining us here.
I actually have one more quick question. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah.
How is everything going with the coalition for the missing? What's the New Hampshire coalition?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So this August 15th, we haven't put it out publicly yet, but August 15th, we have a coalition of families of the missing and murdered in New Hampshire, and we meet every year at City Plaza in Concord, and um, we just raise awareness for our missing loved ones. We are seeking change and reform in the Attorney General's office in terms of victim advocacy. We're seeking better communication. And so far, we've seen some progress. We've made a little headway. We still have a long way to go. But if anyone's in the area of New England, New Hampshire in August, please come out, show your support. It's a great event. I know Tim and Lance, you joined us one year. That was awesome. But it's heartbreaking. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to connect with other families and feel like we're not alone. And that's most important. So I'm super excited about this year. We already had a few planning meetings. We've already got the permit insurance good to go. We're just going to continue to do this and try to work collaboratively with the New Hampshire AG's office and cold case unit.
Great. And how has that been going? How is the work between you and the AG and the cold case unit going?
It's going much better. So for the first 10 years of Mars case, it wasn't going so great. We had some struggles, but now there's a new team in place, and I feel it's not that the other team didn't care, but I feel more of a connection with this team, partly because I'm more involved. But I do feel more empathy coming from the public officials that I meet with and speak with. And so I have a meeting been 2 weeks actually up in Concord. So I continue to have regular meetings with the chief of the cold case unit, and I'm 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 happy with the progress.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and you did mention that Tim and I were there one year, and I was just blown away at how it was rainy and the support that showed up, and the people with family members who need answers. Like these people need answers. They have missing family members, or their family member was murdered, and they don't have any answers yet. And it was just so impressive to see officials like literally walk out of the building and walk up to the people and talk to them. They didn't give them exactly what they wanted at the time, but it was a step in the right direction. And
Yes.
you know, you could, unless they were being super like politicky, you could see it on their face. Like they realize that this is an issue now that needs to be addressed. So I'm so happy to hear that things are progressing.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point. You know, it was a terrible day. It was raining, it was cold, but those public officials stayed out for the entire time. They did not go in until every single person there had a chance to, um, speak to them, talk about their grievances. So I, they earned a lot of respect from me that day, and so did everybody else that showed up. So we're hoping to keep pushing and keep fighting, um, because I believe a more collaborative relationship is only going to help these loved ones, these unsolved cases. Um, and yeah, so August 15th.
Very
Great,
good. Thank you
great.
so much. Yeah, I'm definitely going to plan to be there
Yes.
this year. I ordered a t-shirt as well. So I'm very, very excited to see when that comes in.
I ordered 2 t-shirts.
I ordered 3.
Well, I'm ordering a 4th right now.
No, but yeah, we should see you there on August 15th. So that'll be
Awesome.
great. So thank you so much, Julie, for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a great event, such a worthy cause. So I appreciate the invite.
Awesome. Well, you take care. We'll be talking to you soon.
Okay, take care.
Great.
All right. Thank you. All right. Wow. So this has been a great evening already.
Great evening already.
If you want to donate, we've got a link here. Let's see, share this again. I know it's being shared. It is very tough to keep up with the chat. My gosh, thank you.
It's impossible. We got 107 people going here. It's amazing.
That's great. Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, so this is wonderful. We see Bill Thomas in here. I see Luciana in here. I see Robert Lynch, Michelle Kazuba, otherwise known as Shelly. She really likes to be called Shelly.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to call Bill Thomas Papa Bill, loves that too. So yeah.
That's right.
Or
Papa
if
Bill.
you want to call Papa Bill Shelly and Shelly Papa Bill, let's see what happens. Let's roll the dice.
Okay, next up, we are bringing on Bobby Tagavi. And this is going to be a really interesting conversation. We have not spoken with him yet. We are planning on hosting him in a full interview at some point soon. But I'm very excited to speak to Bobby. We're going to let him in right now.
Excited to meet him.
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
Hey guys, how you doing?
Great. Thank you so much for your patience.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Awesome.
You're loud and clear. Thank you so much for your patience while you were waiting in the green room. Hopefully they provided you with all the refreshments there that you needed.
They absolutely did.
Okay, great. You look exactly how I thought you were going to look. We have never met you.
It's good to meet you guys.
Yeah, you got the tie and the shirt on. For anyone who doesn't know who you are, can you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. My name is Bobby Tagavi. I'm currently one of the owners and the managing partner at Sweet James. Sweet James is a plaintiff's lawyer. We're plaintiff lawyers. We're accident lawyers, and we're in California, Georgia, Nevada, Texas. And prior to this life, for about 15 years or so, I was a senior deputy district attorney in the county of Orange. And I did primarily a lot of prosecution on sex crimes, gangs, and then I was assigned to a serial killer task force, the Golden State Killer. So that's kind of my background, and I'm a trial attorney by trade, and that's that's a quick and dirty.
Well, great. Well, thank you, and welcome to this live show here, this virtual fundraiser for private investigations for the missing. I'm just curious, before we get more into your background, what is your relationship with private investigators? Do you work with them often?
I haven't worked with them often. I know when I was back at the DA's office, I know that there were cases that they were involved in. So I know it's a great organization, and obviously nights like tonight, it's such a worthy cause. So I never got to work with them specifically, but I'd heard of them and I knew of them for a very long time.
Very cool. So can you tell us a bit about working on the Golden State Killer Task Force, and how did that come to be, and you get added to that?
So, for a lot of people that know, the Golden State Killer was from 1984 on, kind of stopped with his murders and the rapes and all the horrible things that he did. And the case, no one really had linked the case until later on in the 90s, where they realized it was the same person that was what they called the Visalia ransacker, the East Area rapist, and then ultimately the Golden State Killer. At that point, they started slowly, the different jurisdictions started putting on task forces, and the task forces included detectives and forensic scientists and then prosecutors. And it started kind of heating up because of Michelle McNamara, who was Patton Oswalt's late spouse, and she drew a lot of attention to it. And then as it heated up again, they started putting task force together. There were 4 victims in Orange County, 4 murder victims, and I was picked to be on that task force to try to find out who Joseph D'Angelo was, and ultimately the case was solved and he pled guilty. So, and I think my sexual assault prosecution background had a lot to do with it, because he was notorious for the sex crimes that he committed prior to the murders and during the murders.
So where does someone like you start? Because this is something you mentioned, Michelle McNamara. She didn't come into the picture when it's in regards to the Golden State Killer until much later, right? So where does someone like you start when at this point you're invited in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I haven't actually been asked that question. So where I started was I read every book ever written about him. One of them was Michelle McNamara's book. I went through every police report from the Visalia ransacker days all the way through the 1984 Irvine murders. So reading every single police report, listening to every single cassette audio of interviews, reading, all crime scene investigations and any kind of CSI reports, and then meeting with the task force to see where the investigation was. And at the time I started, we were still looking through inmates and dead inmates, in fact, to see if any dead people that were in prison that had died in prison matched any of the MOs based on their crimes. I mean, we were, you have no idea where to start with someone like that. But really the first, I think, 3 months of it was just learning about all the different crimes and trying to understand the links between them all. And that's kind of where I started.
Okay, I have a follow-up question on that. You're obviously a busy person. How do you prioritize your time? How do you prioritize that?
Well, I mean, when I worked for the DA's office, that was my sole assignment, right? So they were like, "You're on this task force, and that is all you're doing." So I really immersed myself. I mean, night and day. Just in my house, I had a room that had all the reports and all the sketches and all the pictures. It almost looked like my own war room, and just make sure my little nieces don't go in there. There's just all sorts of horrible stuff in there that. But yeah, I mean, I was fully immersed in it, just like all the other, attorneys and investigators were.
Now, were there moments where you found a person or a lead and you were pretty sure that that was the direction that the case was going to lead in, and it turned out to not be the case?
Not in my time, when I got in, they had kind of run down all the different leads, And then really during my time there is when the DNA match happened, and things suddenly opened up out of nowhere. But there wasn't really any super, super hot leads at the time when I first started.
And how long was it into your work on this that there were rumblings that this was coming together, that there was a viable suspect, and perhaps they were closing in on someone?
Yeah. I mean, it was really through the DNA, right, and understanding what happened was DNA from the crime scene was uploaded onto GEDmatch, which is a DNA website, and then um, that matched with a family tree, essentially someone from his father's side, and then the family tree was made, and figuring out, okay, who matches it, who lived there at the time, males in that age range, and then as that happened, it all started coming together very quickly.
Do you have time to be shocked by anything like that, or like who the person is, or are you kind of just like, now we gotta figure out how to lock this guy up?
Working sex crimes for a long time, it really quickly makes you not shocked at anything, because it's with sex crimes, and a lot of times with missing people, and unfortunately with cases that are kidnapped and murder cases, most of the time they have some kind of sex crime component to it, unfortunately. And you really quickly realize that it's the one crime that crosses all socioeconomic, um, any ethnicity. Like you see it from everybody, whether it's someone's super wealthy, super poor, criminal history, no criminal history. So it really allows you, once you work those cases for a long time, to have a real open mind as to anyone can be a suspect. And with Joseph DeAngelo specifically, so many things fell in place. It was almost like he was right in front of our eyes, but he wasn't. And just once we looked back at so much of the things that he had done, reading the search warrant was like this perfect puzzle that was perfectly came together. It was just shocking that it was right there, and everything fit so well.
So we talk a lot about missing people. We're on the board of private investigations for the missing, and we always try to figure out what circumstances went into why somebody disappeared, or why somebody disappeared and was later turned up murdered in a particular circumstance. And a lot of it has to do with their environment, their community, their living situation, relationships. Connect that to like the Golden State Killer and the people that he terrorized. Like, fast forward to today, do you see that pattern happening again today? Like, do you see cases that come to you and you're like, this could possibly be somebody just like DeAngelo, but it's just like maybe the third victim?
Yeah, most crimes are obviously crimes of opportunity. That's what I have found, at least in my time, right? It's very rare that you get the very random boogeyman, for lack of a better term. And the interesting thing about Joseph DeAngelo was he kind of was like the boogeyman, right? It was almost like he was very similar to the Night Stalker, where there was not really a rhyme or reason. It was just, hey, this window seems open, I'm going to go in there. At the beginning, it very much happened where it was around where he lived, and it was specific female type victims, but it was very much a crime of it was just very random. Whereas most of the time, it's a family member, it's a friend, it's a significant other, an ex significant other, or a neighbor. But with someone like Joseph DeAngelo, and why it was not only difficult to find him and solve the crime, but also why it was so notorious beyond the sheer numbers and the brutality of it, was it was like the Night Stalker. It was just complete randomness. There was very little, if any, connection with any of the victims at all, and that's what made it so scary, right? You never know who it was. Whereas with most, and I probably can assume with most of the cases that you all see, when and if they're solved, a lot of times it is actually someone that they know, or someone that had some kind of opportunity to have a connection with them.
Yeah, I mean, even when they're not solved, we look at it and we say, what's the missing evidence here?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's like actually a blood trail from
Yep.
from someone's home to the crime scene, and the mom is posting pictures on social media about the abuse that the husband was directly responsible for, and they still can't seem to make that connection. So yeah, I mean, there's both ways there, I guess. And you have your random boogeyman, and then you have the one that's like right in front of you the whole time that you just can't seem to pin down.
Right, and that's what makes it scary, right? Like, it
Yeah.
makes me think of BTK, where
Yeah.
it was just complete random. He lived, he was a church going guy in that community, but beyond that, no one really could figure out or pinpoint why and where he was hitting, and that's where the community's anxiety goes up, and those are, I think, a lot of why there's these unsolved cases when you have people like that. That's very random.
Right. And in your experience, how often does someone who commits sex crimes, how often do they escalate to murder or attempted murder?
Not often. Usually it's the sex crime itself that escalates from not very aggressive to extreme. But to then make that jump to murder, you don't see it often. Now, if you work at it reverse, right? If you look at a lot of the murderers, did they escalate through sex crimes? Yes, but it doesn't work the other way around, if that makes any sense. A very small number of them take that step. With D'Angelo, it was actually very classic. It was almost like a psychology book, right? He started out with ransacking women's drawers, and then from there it was grabbings and touchings, and then it escalated to full-blown sexual assaults, and then escalated to sexual assault tortures, to sexual assault torture murder. And so that his was a very classic of what you would imagine. But most of the time, the sex offenders, and it varies, right? You have sex offenders that target children versus sex offenders that target adults, and the adult ones usually are the ones that get a little more violent as time goes on, whereas the ones that target children typically don't, right? But then you have the ones like Avila, who was in my county, in Orange County, that kidnapped and murdered Samantha Runyon, and that was a really big case in the early 2000s. So most of the time it the other way. You see the correlation, but not so much from sex offender to murder.
I have to ask this question because, again, we have a lot of people on who have such deep knowledge of this topic, more than Tim and I do, because this is your profession. You deal with the sex crimes on a daily basis. What do you do to decompress? How do you pull yourself out of that and have a sense of humor? And, how do you self-care?
Yeah, a lot of people have asked me that question, and I did sex crime prosecutions for about 7 years, and usually after about 4 or 5, they kind of pull you out of that unit. Really, I don't know if you can really ever decompress from it, but what you do is you compartmentalize it, and some people can't do it, and some people can. And I think I was fortunate enough to be able to compartmentalize and handle those cases, and it was a very gratifying and rewarding thing that I got to do in my career. But it definitely scars you. I would be lying if I said, I'll walk into a department store, and most people see a grandma and a grandpa and their child, their grandson or granddaughter, and for a very long time, that's not where my head went immediately, right? I was like, why is this old guy in the toy section? It makes no sense to me. So I don't know if you ever like recover from that kind of second or third hand trauma, but you compartmentalize it, and that's kind of the best way I can tell you how I handle it, at least. And I'm sure other people have. I play golf poorly, so.
So how do you also? Well, okay. Do you also compartmentalize your personal feelings towards an individual has committed these acts on children or on their significant other or anybody?
Yeah, Lance, that's a really good question that I was actually talking to someone about recently. You have to, right? Because most of the time when you get a case and you're evaluating it to file charges against them, the hardest part is when you're like, I'm pretty sure he or she did it, but I don't think I can prove it. And that is where you get a lot of, unfortunately, friction sometimes with the victims or the victims' families, right? Is when, as an attorney or as a prosecutor, you're in this position that you have to make sure that you're only filing charges that you can prove beyond a reasonable doubt in front of 12 people, 12 members of the community, right? And to be able to hold yourself, and for me, I did that job because I wanted to help protect the community, help protect victims. And there's no glory in sitting there and having to watch hours of sexual assault videos to prove up a case, right? It messes with you, and it's not a pleasant way to, there's a lot of other things you can do in law and practice law, and not doing that. So for me, the hardest part was knowing that, hey, I'm pretty sure this person committed these crimes, but I don't have enough right now to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And that was a big struggle for me, to hold myself accountable and hold myself disciplined, because that the power of that pen is also very powerful, and it can ruin someone's life if you're not responsibly practicing law.
That's like the best answer that I've ever heard for that question. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's a daily struggle.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Bobby, for joining us here tonight on this very special live fundraising event. We will connect with your people about having you on our podcast for a full interview that we would love to do, and to have you on for a full conversation sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Lance. Great cause for you guys that you're doing this. So kudos to you all, and everyone that's donating, and all the people watching. So we appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. Stay safe out there.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it. Bye now.
All right. What a great introduction to Bobby. Yeah. I mean, we've never met him before, and he's a super guy. Can't wait to talk to him on the show.
I know, that'll be great.
Yeah. I just want to address the people here. Yeah, sure. It's been fluctuating between like 90 and 110 people that have been watching and commenting. So amazing. We are reading all of the comments. Michelle said that you can call her anything as long as you donate. So I don't know if that's opening up a Pandora's box there, but she volunteered something there.
What was that? Sorry, I missed it. I was reading the comments.
Oh, sorry. When we were talking about calling her Shelly, she said you can call her anything as long as anybody can call her anything as long as they donate. So I don't know if there's like, have we started something good here? Like, can we have like a maybe best nickname for Michelle or something? But I think she might have opened up a Pandora's box. And I've been surprised. We've had a couple of people asking if we're going to do a 5K again to raise money for private investigations for the missing. And cool. We will. I promise we will. We had some housekeeping to do here internally. It takes about 6 to 7, 8 months to properly plan one of those 5Ks. So stay tuned. There will be another one. It might be a 5 to 10K. We'll see. But yes, there will be a new one, maybe in the early months of next year. Okay.
Michelle's not getting a tattoo, but Lance did last time.
I did. I can probably lift my leg up here. I did. I got a tattoo.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got video evidence of this, though.
No, you did. I took pictures and video. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Was it ever shared on the show publicly? Might have been shared in a text thread.
Maybe it was a text thread, but maybe I can take my camera down. No.
Let's let Dr. Trace
and her dog
Sargent. Yeah, let's invite Dr. Trace Sargent in here right now. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing very well. Thank you so much.
We're doing awesome. We had the pleasure to meet you and your dogs before we started the live stream, and you're a very lucky person because they seem like amazing beings. And you are very accomplished, and I would love you to introduce yourself to the audience and give a bit of a background on what you do.
Yes, Lance. My name is Tracy Sargent. Most people know me as Trace. I have a PhD in psychology with the emphasis of criminology. I am a criminal profiler. I am a law enforcement officer as well as an EMT, firefighter, emergency management, and of course, a dog handler and a master trainer. I have been involved in missing person cases for over 30 years. I've been involved in probably over 2,000 cases now. Um, Many of those are cold cases, difficult cases that I've worked over the years. And then, of course, fugitive cases, missing children, Alzheimer's, hikers, plane crashes, drownings, pretty much any scenario that you can think of that somebody would go missing that I've worked. And all of these have been done with the incredible, amazing abilities of these canines that we truly do not deserve dogs. And I'm so privileged and honored to be a partner with these amazing animals to help us with these incredible stories of families and the challenges that they go through.
And we're definitely going to get into more of that, but also on your bio, it says that you do Civil War and Revolutionary War work. And that led us to kind of question, what is that? Like, do descendants from Civil War soldiers contact you to look at battlegrounds to see if there's remains of their like ancestors?
Well, yes, they do. What's really fascinating about that, when you think about cold cases, most people will think about a homicide case or maybe a mystery. They don't really think about these battlefields, but in essence, it is a cold case, just a cold case that's 150, 250, 300 years old. We do get contacted by archaeologists and even descendants of these brave men that fought for our country. And what really opened up my eyes when I started this was an archaeologist contacted me many years ago for the Revolutionary War battlefield site. It was here in Georgia. And I have to say to you, Lance and Tim, and to the listeners that it's one thing to go into a museum and look at the artifacts and read about, history and what happened, but to actually walk the grounds of where these men fought and many of them died for our country is a whole different feeling, especially when you have an archaeologist standing there next to you. In my situation, he leans over, he looks down on the ground and he picks something up and he starts talking about this musket ball that he picked up. And he said, yes, this is from the Patriots, which is the Americans. And this is from the British and so on and so forth. And then we talk about the Civil War, which people are very familiar with. And to walk the grounds of where history happened, it's a totally different feeling. And when I was first asked this, again, Revolutionary War, about 235, 40 years old. And I said, sir, we don't train for 250-year-old remains. But I tell you what, if you don't tell the dogs, I won't tell the dogs, and let's see what happens. And that's how that began. And it winded up being an incredible, amazing endeavor. There's been a huge report and a number of articles and reports written about it. And from there, the word got out that these dogs can, in fact, and help in those what we call historical type projects. So I've done a number of those through the years, and many of them here in the South. So in essence, what I've learned in this situation, that dogs, you really can't hide scent from them. It doesn't matter how old or how, with all due respect, fresh the scent might be. If the scent is there, they will pick it up.
That's amazing. Yeah, we've heard about cadaver dogs searching from a boat, but a person in the water. That was pretty shocking to me. So there's no age, no water is not a barrier. Well, that's pretty amazing. I mean, if we didn't already not deserve dogs for their personalities, we really don't deserve them for their search abilities.
Absolutely. And I would say, and add to the historical, back story of doing these type of things, is that I had to quickly really ignore roads and trees and buildings and things of that sort, because so many things have changed over the years. So it was not unusual for the dogs to actually alert to a tree or alert to the middle of a road or something like that, versus, let's say, a homicide case that would be very unlikely. So I even had to approach it differently. And then looking at the science of it and understanding what scent does and the environment and how that is impacted over the years, what I advise the archaeologists and what we call GPR operators, ground penetrating radar operators, and other subject matter experts that are involved in these kind of projects, is that when you look at, let's say, a homicide case or a missing person case that's been missing for weeks, months, or even a few years, where the dogs alert, oftentimes X marks the spot. But with historical projects, which I advise is about a 50-foot radius of where the dogs alert. Because when you, let's say, for example, a soldier is killed, a tree grows right there, it grows up. Well, in essence, we are made up primarily of fluids. So that tree actually absorbs those cadaver fluids. And we've actually seen dogs do this. They alert to trees and bushes. Well, with that, if you talk about the root system and the depth of the soil, so to speak, that oftentimes that scent is going to be dispersed by that tree some distance. So that is another difference that we've recognized and really have learned over the years working with those kind of very specialized type projects.
This is really fascinating to me and to Tim as well, because when we started looking into Maura Murray's disappearance, we had heard rumors about cadaver dogs searching different locations and how people made up their own rules about how a cadaver dog like reacts when they come in contact with an area that might have a deceased individual. And I remember this like infamous quote. It's not infamous in the grand sense of the world, but like in my head, it's infamous because someone had said, "Oh, went to this certain location and the dog like went bonkers or whatever. Like the dog went nuts." And then when we worked with cadaver dogs with scent dog like search dogs, they don't go bonkers. Like they don't when there's a hit, they lay down, they get calm, like they sit, like they stop. And it just like put a lot of things into perspective. It was like really a transformative moment in looking into these cold cases, because all my perception was that when a cadaver dog gets a scent, it goes nuts because of one comment that I read. And then I find out, no, it's going to circle, it's going to act off, and then it's going to probably sit down, it's going to lay down, like, and that's just remarkable to me.
Yes, and I think it's important for listeners to know that cadaver dogs tell us two things every time we use them. They tell us where something is and where something isn't. And what I've learned over the years, knowing where something isn't is just as important and helpful in a case than where something is. Of course, we want to find what we're looking for, but it's very often we go on these searches and it's a process of elimination. There's one case I worked, we checked 28 different places for this gentleman, and we found him on the last location, which was number 29. Which was great because as these tips and leads came in, we could quickly check the area and tell law enforcement officials, guys, I don't know where he is, but I can tell you he's not here. And with the limited resources and other variables that are so challenging in these cases, that's a really helpful thing to know. And when people ask, well, how many people or bodies or remains have your dogs found? And I said, well, that's not really an accurate question and what these dogs do for us. That case, for example, the dogs were right 29 out of 29 times, but they only found one body. So they were very effective in that search. So with that, you're right, Lance. When we do work these cadaver dogs, we're actually very stealthy, so to speak. The dogs are very focused. They do their job. And when they find what they're looking for, in this case, human remains scent, they will sit. Now, the important part to note about that is that the dogs are part of several things. One, they're part of the investigative team, but they're also a tool in the toolbox. So when a dog alerts to an area, I am stepping in and saying, why? Why did the dog alert here? Is it related to the case? Is it unrelated to the case? Does it have anything to do with what we're looking for? Or is it something that is totally innocent? We need to figure out, why did the dog alert here, and determine if it's important for us to, check into that further. There's been a number of times where we search in an area and the dogs respond, and I will tell them, this area is not cleared. It warrants further investigation to determine why the dogs did this. And then oftentimes it is very, very important evidence that is discovered by the dog's responses in that area. It's not like Hollywood. Sometimes it is. Let me back up. Let me take that back. There's a few occasions it is like Hollywood, but more often than not, it's not an obvious thing. So let me say, for example, this week I'm on call for a murder trial for a murder that happened last August. This husband shot and killed his wife. And long story short, they had been there for about 10 hours processing the scene inside the house. They found blood. They didn't know whose it was. They really didn't know who was missing, who wasn't. So there were still a lot of unanswered questions. So before they released the scene, and it was a very nice home and a very nice part of this city where this occurred, it's not something that happens very often. So they said, Tracy, before we release the scene, we want to, kind of cover all of our bases and make sure there's not something here that we missed. So we arrived there, and within just minutes, and I will show the dog in just a moment, he responded. And there were multiple debris piles in the backyard where they were clearing a wooded area. And there were, I dare say, probably a dozen debris piles or more there. And I told the law enforcement officers, check this debris pile and this one only. The others are clear. So when they did that, guess what they found? They found the wife's body had been burned. She was shot and killed and buried under that debris. So that's a perfect example. And the murder trial is happening this week. So my point of that is, these dogs answer so many questions for us. Sometimes we don't even know what those questions are. But I would dare say, especially in these high profile cases and cold cases, if it has not been checked by a dog team, the area has not been cleared. Because oftentimes what these dogs do for us, if it's something that we can't see and visibly clear with our own eyes, then the dogs are a great resource and tool for that. And hold on just a second. I'm going to grab.
Oh yeah, please do. Please do. Special guest.
I'm sorry. I should have had that closer for me. So that's a great, there's so many examples of what these dogs do for us. And you mentioned about water. Yes, dogs can find people underwater, and it's actually very easy for them. And I will be happy to explain that if you want me to, on why it's easy for them to do that.
Yeah, I think the audience here has a lot of questions. We had Barbara talk about the olfactory amplification of the dogs. Christopher was talking about the concrete burial, how they can pick up a scent there. So I guess I'm going to try to combine the questions here. Is the way that they can pick up a cadaver in water the same as the way that they would pick up a cadaver in a concrete burial?
In some ways, yes. So I imagine most of your listeners have been in water deep enough where you go deep and it's cold. And then as you come to the surface, it gets warmer and then even quite warm or hot at the surface. So think about scent as a living organism. So scent is going to be pulled or drawn to heat. So the body's underwater, that scent is actually going to go to the surface. So the scent is actually coming above the water and the dogs can detect it that way. The huge challenge about water recovery is this. We cannot see how the currents and the topography and the debris and all of those things are underwater. So if we have, say, for example, and this actually happened not too long ago in a case we worked, we were in a river and the dog actually alerted, and I said, well, we need to look upstream because the scent was coming downstream. So when we did, we saw this tree that the dog actually tried to get out of the boat and go to. So I had to hold on to him, and when we looked in the tree, that's where the person was. So it's about the currents, and it's just a lot more difficult underwater. Whereas on land, oftentimes where the dog's alert, X marks the spot. The difference would be, and I advise law enforcement officials about this, if a dog alerts on the side of a hill, I always look uphill visually and take the dog uphill because oftentimes the scent's going to be coming downhill. So that's the big difference there. And then again, of course, the historical projects, we do a lot larger radius because scent does move over the years because of the trees and things. Taz, come here. Taz, here. Here.
Yeah, can we meet your friend here?
Yeah.
You know, what's funny is that he's never allowed on furniture, so I had to actually encourage him to get on the furniture earlier. Come on, Taz. Up. Here is Taz. Come here, Taz. Come here. I'm going to have to scoot over since. Here, come here, sit. Up. Come on. Oh, come here.
He's camera shy.
No, he's not. He's just, come here. Up. It's just kind of crowded.
Oh, my.
Stay.
Stop it. Look at him.
No, I'm trying to hang on. Let me come here, Taz. Look. I'm trying. Let me get the camera there. Okay, there.
Oh my God.
How you doing?
Oh my, hey Taz. Look at you,
up,
you
pal?
handsome son of a bee.
Wow.
Wow. That's a handsome
Very
dog.
handsome.
Well, let me tell you a little about him. He actually was almost euthanized.
No.
Yes, that is correct. So what we believe is that he was a pandemic pound puppy. You know, during the pandemic, everybody got the puppies and all the cute dogs and all of that. And then, of course, we assume that he was probably, you know, adopted as a puppy, but he winded up in a high kill shelter when he was about 12 to 14 months old. And a friend of mine actually told me about him because I was looking for a new dog because one of my other dogs had recently retired. So I went to go and evaluate him and took him home. And he's been an amazing, incredible partner that we've literally been all over the country. He's been in Montana, Texas, California, Tennessee, Georgia, the Carolinas, Florida, and Alabama. So he's just an amazing dog and so lucky to have found him.
Wow. Well, that sounds like a special relationship that you two have. And Dr. Sargent, we would love to continue this conversation with you in a separate interview, strictly about you and your dogs and your search tactics on a separate podcast interview sometime very soon, if that's cool with you.
I would be honored to do that and certainly answer any of your questions and any of your listeners' questions and share this incredible, amazing abilities that these dogs have and the things that they do for us. And again, how they help these amazing families and law enforcement officials all over the country.
Yes, and I want to just piggyback on that and say that people who are donating to private investigations for the missing, those funds could possibly go to somebody like Trace or Trace herself if she decides to take on a particular disappearance and use those dogs, the funds that you'd be donating, if she's connected with that case through private investigations for the missing, that's where your money's going. So that is amazing. And I can't think of a better spokesperson for that than you and Taz with his adorable cocked face. So,
and I'd like to add that I do have 2 other search dogs with me. They're all very experienced and have found a number of people. Taz, of course, being a Belgian Malinois. And then I have 2 shepherds, a solid black shepherd named Draco, which many people are familiar with during the Chase Massner case. And then Willow, she's my newest dog. She's about 3 years old. She's a dark sable female German shepherd. So, and with that, we are available and happy to help anyone literally in the world. I have traveled overseas. Most people are familiar with the Natalie Holloway case. I was involved in that as well. So, have truck, have dog will travel, so to speak. And Taz has been on a plane many times. So if there's any family or law enforcement agency that needs our assistance, we would be honored to help in any way.
fantastic.
Thank you so much for joining us here tonight, Trace. We really appreciate it. We will connect offline here for some scheduling for a different interview. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Y'all be safe and take care.
Thank you.
Same.
Thank you
Take
very
care.
much. You too. All right. Wow. We are cruising along here. Yeah, really. We only have one other group of guests here on the schedule, but Lance, I think we have time for a special guest that was not announced, not scheduled, and we'll try to keep this brief because I know Lou and Greg are waiting.
And it's getting close to their bedtime.
I didn't want to say that, Lance. I didn't want to throw an old joke in there.
It wasn't an old joke. They're busy.
Jason Watts, how are you?
How are you, Jason?
I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing great over here.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And now we understand you worked with Dr. Trace Sargent just recently in a search for Jason Landry. And I just want to preface, Jason Landry is not officially a private investigations for the missing case, but it is a case that we follow closely. Jason has worked on and has spoken about this case on our show Missing a few times now.
Yeah. So I personally have not worked with Trace Sargent yet, but Jim West, he is our group leader and main search organizer. He actually arranged for Trace to come down with, I believe, Taz. Don't quote me on that, but to come down to Texas and conduct a search for Jason Landry. And it was really awesome to finally see the person behind, who Jim had really been bragging on. So. She was amazing. She came down and searched several locations around Jason Landry's crash site. Unfortunately, did not locate Jason, but we know that Trace is one of the best. So it was awesome to have her down.
Well, Jason, I would love to hear a little bit about how private investigations for the missing helped you locate Brandon Lawson, your old high school classmate, and you led a search team that did find his remains several years after he went missing. So yeah, if you could just give us a little bit on how private investigations for the missing helped you in your search.
Well, private investigations for the missing really helped me as far as spreading the word and helping me get the word out about Brandon. But I would say while Brandon's case was not officially a private investigations for the missing case, Lou Barry, who is in the chat, he's a private investigator, retired chief of police. I had seen the work that he had done, in the Breonna Maitland case, and I knew that he was, associated with private investigations for the missing. So I reached out to him in 2019 to just for advice and guidance and mentorship, so to speak, and how to proceed. And Lou was great. Thanks to his advice and his coaching, we put a search team on the ground in January of 2022, and we obviously we made the discovery that ultimately led to Brandon's recovery, and that could not have been done without Lou Barry and without private investigations for the missing, giving me a platform to help do that. So that's really the way they helped out, and I'm forever appreciative. I had the opportunity to meet Bruce Maitland at the Crime Con in New Orleans. I cannot say enough good things about what he is doing with this nonprofit.
And you have since become a licensed private investigator.
I have, yes.
And you have like a whole search team, like you have a whole crew, you have a whole posse that helps you out now.
I like to look at it as we help each other out, though. But yes, no, we are all part of a great team. Hallie is in the chat. Hallie is awesome. She makes sure we're all going in the right direction and don't all go off 50 different ways and get lost. Jim West is in the chat. Like I said, he's kind of the main guy behind the help, keeping the wheel going. There are so many great people on that search team, come from all walks of life, all ages, all over the country. I think the last search we did a few weeks ago, we had around 50 volunteers out there searching, an area where in the near vicinity where Jason went missing. And it's just an awesome effort. I hope you two can come down and join us one time. I think you'll really be blown away.
Yeah, I think we're going to make an effort to get down there to do one of those searches. But to be honest, like you say the word terrain, and I joked about this a few weeks ago, like terrain up here is like some mud and some mosquitoes and some pine trees and some, growth. Down there, terrain is like cacti and wild boar,
rattlesnakes
and scorpions. And we're in Texas, so I mean, you don't know where the property lines are, and you guys are like armed to the teeth. So, I mean,
they may or may not have given me the nickname Yosemite Sam.
Not selling it for us, Jason. Yeah, no, thank you so much for just popping in real quick to chat with us. We did make a joke about Greg and Lou needing to hit the hay before the sun.
Well, I don't want Greg hunting me down. So yeah,
just throw gas station hot dogs at him.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having me on. I love you guys. I love everybody in the chat, and I hope to see you all again very soon.
Awesome.
Thanks,
love you too,
pal.
man.
Yeah, we love you too. Thank you for joining us here on this live fundraising event. Okay, let's bring in private investigators Lou Barry and Greg Overacker. How's it going, fellas?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Doing good. Just a couple of things to note. Trace has done a number of searches for us, and she's extremely generous with her time and what she charges us. I mean, she's an unbelievable person, very generous person.
Awesome.
Second thing is Taz is better behaved than Lance.
Oh,
I believe it.
Greg is back from the gas station, so his stomach should be full.
Greg.
yeah. He just spent $8.50 at the gas station, so he's good for the week.
What's going on?
Greg, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing pretty good over here. Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, certainly.
It's been a long time. So as private investigators, what does this whole operation mean to you guys?
Well, this was a long time in the coming. Bruce and I used to talk about this a lot, and that was a long time of not having somebody like Lou on board, which that was a huge step for us to take. And Bruce deciding he was going to do this, he took the money that was from the reward for Brianna. It times out. You have to put it, and Luke could probably explain this better than I could, but you have to put it in some sort of a special account, and then it times out after a while. You have to start it over. So when it timed out, he took the money and he hired an attorney and went through with it. But we had discussed it at length for a long time. And that was based on the fact that we were doing so much work. And when we would have dinner and stuff and talk about it, he's like, I could never have afforded this. I was doing it for expenses and stuff. And we were like, what families that truly need help can afford this? They just can't. So it was a huge thing, and it means a lot to everybody. Of course, we got Lou on board now. Lou pretty much is the manager. Everything falls to his shoulders, kind of.
Yeah. So Lou, tell us about what you do. I know that you have some help now with I guess intakes. I want to say Kathleen, give a shout out to Kathleen, who I believe has been helping with screenings. Tell us a little bit about your role.
Yeah, Kathleen had been an immense help, taking a lot off my shoulders. Last year we had over 200 requests, so that's like, 2 out of 3 days we'd get a request just about, and it was that was just the intake part, and then there's the paperwork involved. And if we take a case, there's finding private investigators, then there's managing the private investigators and make sure that they're doing their job, conferring with them, etc. And it just got to be way too much. So Kathleen stepped up and she screens the cases. And if she's relatively new at it, but she's learned really fast, and she knows what automatically to screen out and which ones might deserve a harder look that she ships over to me. We also have 5 case managers now that actually manage the PIs, so that's a huge help. So it's really been beneficial to the organization. It makes everything run a little bit smoother, and no one in any organization should be doing everything for no other reason that only that person has the knowledge, and that's not a good thing. So I think it's really important that that this begun. This idea was Greg's to start with, and then I got involved, and I do all the work. And Greg eats hot dogs. I'm not quite sure how that worked out, but that seems to be the way.
I do what?
Eat hot dogs.
Yeah. That was my COVID world shutdown. No restaurants are open. What am I gonna do? Yeah.
You moved up to gas station sushi. Is that it?
Yeah. Is that moving up?
Yeah.
So I got involved, and every time I think in the Maitland case, and every time I think about, geez, this is a lot of work and I'm not getting paid for it, I think about the work that Greg did starting back in 2006 or 7, and still doing the work on a case, and still doesn't get paid for it. So it's hard to to complain to yourself when you look at Greg and see what he's done for nothing over the years. It's really
Lou, when you and
incredible.
I go up north, just the two of us, I mean, the expenses between gas and food and rooms and paperwork, and it adds up quick.
Yeah.
It's just the two of us,
Yeah.
We go up for a few days or something. It's
Yeah.
burn through a lot of cash quick.
It does. Yeah.
Can you imagine that on top of paying someone a couple $100 an hour,
It's just not affordable. It's just not I talked to PIs and some of them quote me rates of $250 an hour.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But
well, you talk about like the very tangible expenses. You say gas and food and lodging. Those are things that are just like supposed to happen when you're traveling, but there must be like so many other things that you're just not accounting for. If you have to go out and spend a certain amount of money on flyers because flyers might be necessary at that particular moment to, maybe start putting out in the neighborhood, or anything really that would be just like this, I don't know, intangible thing, or this, unforeseen thing that you need to pay for. So I want to be clear, when people give their money to this organization, it's not just so that the PIs can eat when they go out to look into these cases. Like, the families might need something that they need to go and pay for, like a Freedom of Information Act request or something like that. Like, there's so many other important, nuanced types of expenses that, I mean, no one thinks of unless it's happening in the moment.
Well, you got to keep in mind that, I'm retired, so I get paid whether I'm home or on the road. Greg works for a living. So if he takes a day off to go to Vermont, he's self-employed. He doesn't get paid for that, number one. Number two, just to make things plain, Brianna's case is not a private investigation for the missing case. Bruce made that very clear from day one, that he wanted to keep his own daughter's case out of the organization because he doesn't want to make it look like he's out asking for money to pay for his own daughter's investigation. So I think that's important to note. This has nothing to do with Brianna's case. It's about the cases that his organization funds that have nothing to do with him. Or I shouldn't say nothing to do with him, but nothing to do with his daughter's case. So the big news, I think. I'm sorry, Tim.
No, go ahead. I just said the big news. So
yeah.
I think that the biggest reason we wanted to come on tonight was that here we are 21 years later, and we're getting still good information. And we just got a tip. Now, without being involved in these cases, it's hard to envision how they evolve sometimes, but it's a learning process, and you're trying to figure out what happened in a case like this. And timing is extremely important. All we know for sure is that she left work at 11:20 p.m. period. That was it. And we had some sightings. First at 12:30, her car was there. Then at midnight. But most recently, we got some information that there's no reason to question the credibility whatsoever, that somewhere between 11:30 to 11:45, time unknown, a couple passed the vehicle, and the car at that point was there. The headlights were on, the doors were shut. So they talked about it and said, geez, maybe it's a woman who broke down, maybe she needs help. So they turned around to come back, and they saw what they described, both of them, as a male subject walk in front of the headlights, car door open. According to the male subject, that was the only person in the vehicle. So they were going to stop, but he was concerned because his girlfriend was on that side of the car. So he went down the road, and they were almost struck by silver colored, what he believed to be a Honda, coming extremely fast in the other direction. So they turned around very short distance down the road, and they saw the brake lights on this vehicle come on. Now they're fairly certain, although not 100% positive, that this vehicle stopped at the scene and then took off. When they passed the scene again, as far as they know, no one was there. And this car was traveling, again, at an extremely high rate of speed, so much so that they couldn't catch up with it, and they have no idea where it went to. At this point, that vehicle was heading towards, well, in the direction of St. Albans, Enosburg, that area, heading west. So
away from the Black Lantern?
Yes, that's correct.
So
okay,
it gets a little
Let's just one sec.
Confusing, but Lou, tell them how they make each pass, because what happens is they pass the Dutchburn home multiple times, and kind of tell it in that way.
Yeah, the first time they pass was about 11 o'clock, and there was nobody there, no car there.
In which direction are they heading in at that time?
They were heading east.
And I want to just clarify for anybody who is just kind of popping in right now. Maybe they're in the chat. They're not sure who we're talking about. We're talking about Brianna Maitland, right?
This is correct. Yes.
Okay, we're talking about Brianna Maitland. All right, continue.
So they're heading east. So in other words, they're heading past the Dutchburn home towards the Black Lantern.
That's correct.
Okay.
And they stopped to make a cell phone call where there was service, and they were invited back to St. Albans to go to a party, and they were debating or a dance or something, whether they should go or not. And then they turned around, decided to go. That's when they passed the vehicle, and they saw the vehicle there with the lights on, doors shut. Didn't know who or anybody was there, if anybody was there. So they turned around short distance up the road and decided to come back to see if it was a young female that perhaps might need help or something.
So
that's when on the way back they saw this male, what they describe as a male subject, walk in front of the headlights.
So that's the third pass.
Yes.
That's the third pass.
That's the third pass, yeah. And the door opened.
Interesting.
And that's when they were almost struck by this other vehicle. So they turned around again to go back and saw the taillights, the brake lights come on, and believe the vehicle stopped. And by the time they got there, which was, you're talking less than 2 minutes, the vehicle was gone. No one was there that they saw. And the door was open, the lights were on, and that was it. They never caught up with the vehicle. And that was basically their story. And it changes our theory again. Greg, you want to get into that a little bit?
Before you do, Greg, before you do, can you just describe the vehicle again?
The vehicle that almost struck them?
Yeah.
It was a late 90s, early 2000s gray or silver Honda. And this is all based upon a very fleeting image of this vehicle coming towards them and passing them. So how accurate it is, he was the witness was pretty adamant, but I don't know.
Was it a Honda pickup or a Honda Civic?
No, it was a Honda Civic.
Honda Civic. Okay.
Type, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Greg, you can go.
So they described him as a tall, stocky man, which I always thought stocky meant short and stout, but she described, apparently I'm wrong, tall, stocky man standing in the headlights, and he's actually obscuring his face.
Yeah.
As though he just didn't want them to see him.
Standing in the headlights of Brianna's car.
Yeah.
Walking in front of it. He had a black hoodie on, and he turned his face over to the side and put his hand up when they passed.
So to not be seen?
Presumably.
Speculation, yeah.
Presumably. Okay. Now I know
I'm sorry,
just real quick. I know that there was Brianna's boyfriend who or ex-boyfriend at the time, I guess, who shut one of the doors that evening. Are we saying this is not him?
No, it's not.
No, this would not have been
It's
him.
not him.
It was too early. And that individual, unfortunately, who's deceased now, has given so many versions of that story over the years that it's very difficult to put any credence into any one particular story. So I don't know.
On that pass, when they're coming past and they see him, so this is a boyfriend-girlfriend couple. Who are still together today. She's now closest to the car. They were going to stop, and he felt that it was sketchy, and she's vulnerable because she's near that side of the road. So they decide not to stop, and they continue on. They slow down and then they continue on. As they go past the Dutchburn home, this car comes at them and almost hits them. And they said he was going, rapidly towards them. So she turned around in her seat and saw, as they got up the road, and saw him hammer the brakes. So they're assuming he stopped. They go, is it to the covered bridge, Lou?
Yes.
Yeah, they go. So we know how far it is, and it's literally minutes for them to turn around there and come back. And when they come back, the man at the car they can't see him anywhere. So they're making a pretty good assumption that he got in the car and left. Now, one of the things that I think the female said was that Brianna wasn't there. Now, I don't think that she had no way of knowing that. I think what she was basing that on is the man appeared to be alone. He didn't look like he was appearing to contain anybody or anything like that.
However, if their timing is accurate, and that silver car did stop and pick up the male subject, if they also took Brianna, especially if she was struggling or even not struggling, unconscious or whatever, it's going to take a period of time to get another person from one vehicle into that. We don't think there was time enough.
Yeah.
So we're now thinking that perhaps whatever happened between the Dutchburn house and Black Lantern, or the Black Lantern and the Dutchburn house. And that vehicle was dumped there.
They must have had some sort of a contact with her in between those 2 points.
Yeah.
So when you start thinking about somebody doing this to Brianna, no one pulled up to her that late at night when she's leaving the Black Lantern and saw her from their car and said, "There's a girl alone in a car. I'm gonna, abduct her or whatever." That can't be how that happened. I mean, they wouldn't even know who it was in the car. Somebody had to be waiting, which makes sense. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to sit there and wait. Now you rethink, okay, if there's 2 men involved, somebody driving the car and somebody at the Dutchburn home, did that person get into the backseat of her car? I mean, that was a stowaway theory, was a theory that had been around for years. And so it's at least plausible now. It's in play, and her car was a big old boat, and she probably never locked the doors.
Got in her car at like the Black Lantern.
Yeah. So that was a theory that was always around. And, in my book, I kind of talked about that. And I said, that road, you're traveling on that road, you're doing 50. Would be normal speed. To pop up from someone's back seat and give them a heart attack, you're kind of at the will of them driving off the road, having an accident or whatever, but it's doable. It can happen. Something obviously did happen there at the Dutchburn home, or it could be something different. It could have been him alone taking it up there to try to hide the vehicle or something. But it would seem as though he knew that this other car was coming to pick him up. He's in conjunction with that other car.
Okay. Diane asked a question here just to clear up any confusion. Is this a skier?
Who? The witnesses?
I think that's what she's asking.
No.
The world travelers, probably.
Exactly.
No.
Right. Because that was like hours later.
Yeah, it's at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were had gone out to dinner.
Yep.
So
okay,
nothing
good.
to do with anything. And one of the things over the years we discounted was the person in the back seat theory, because we felt, okay, well, how did they get out of there?
Right.
They didn't have a vehicle. Well, now all of a sudden there's that strong possibility that there was another vehicle that we were before this it was unknown to us.
Was there any investigation done at the Black Lantern parking lot in the little area where employees park their car?
Investigating
Like any sort of like disturbances, any sort of signs of like a struggle there or something?
At the Black Lantern?
Yeah.
No, Bruce went to get the phone records 9 days after she disappeared, and the police hadn't even been there to question anybody yet.
That's insane.
Yeah. That's horrifying.
Did anybody ever like comment that they heard some sort of yelling or anything around the Black Lantern?
No, you know, if you look at the pictures of the Black Lantern, there's a parking lot there. It's very intimate because it's so small and it's such a small neighborhood and whatever. I mean, if you were looking out the window at night, you would see what was going on. But if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't know. I mean, somebody could go over and get in their back seat and lay down. That car, the seats were like couches. They're so big. I mean, you could get in there and lay on the floor. And if she doesn't specifically look in her back seat, she's never going to see somebody back there. So I mean, it's feasible. It's workable, you know.
Especially if they're wearing a black hoodie.
Yeah. To your point, Lance, also, don't forget, this is 2004 in a very small town in Vermont. People were not abducted regularly, you know. So initially, okay, maybe there were mistakes made at the scene, and the police are the first ones to admit it, but they're also understandable mistakes. I mean, Greg recently talked to a law enforcement officer who said a car was off the road at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. Happened all the time. You know, happens all the time up there, right?
I need to talk to this person again, and I'll elaborate more if we talk again about it. But for now, it was a very short conversation. But he said he was on duty that night, and he heard the calls coming in about the car being there. We've never heard that before. That law enforcement was getting calls about Brianna's car that night and through the night. Now, I said, what? And he said, look, we find cars all the time. And, you know, when Lou says this and tells me this, I believe him. But I'm like, it seems so odd. It's just hard to register that in your head that you don't stop and find out what is going on. He said, we would take down plates and make a note of it and come back later. He goes, because it happens all the time. And he goes, 99.9% of the time, it's just somebody's had too much to drink. They don't want to talk to you. They'll be in the next day to get their car. And, you know, that's their right or whatever. But he really made it a point to say that was a really common thing. And
also note that the fact that law enforcement got calls is not any to any specific location. In other words, it wasn't like the state police got calls or the local police. There weren't any local police, but so to say law enforcement did this is a general statement where one call may come into a certain location and the other ones aren't even aware of it. So
yeah. Well, we're blowing up here with questions. Just fire a quick one to you, a couple of quick ones. Lilith is asking if is there any camera surveillance of her getting in her car? And then Tommy asked, did she have any acquaintances that lived near the Lantern or the Dutch Burn?
So there's no surveillance.
No cameras whatsoever.
Okay. And what about
I think Jared is asking about, or I'm sorry, the question asker is asking about someone walking distance. Is my guess.
There's not a lot of walking distance between the Lantern. We are looking into the fact that there's a residence where there was some connection, but that may or may not be relevant. I think that's most likely we ruled out that it is, but it's really yet to be.
That's walkable, right, Lou?
That is walkable. Yes.
Yeah. And that was really intriguing for a few reasons, but we're not so sure now.
Okay. So what about acquaintances that live near the lantern or the Dutch burn? Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeez, guys.
Wow, guys. Yeah. So how does this change, the work that you guys are doing on the case?
Well,
Well,
the one thing that we wanted to bring up, I've got a lot of really bad shit to say about some people that I'm not going to do. But
thank you for that.
Well, one thing that I think is important for everybody to realize, because there's a lot of people that are really invested in Brianna and Maura's case too, Maura Murray's, and these people. It's awesome to see that. It's a really great community, and they discuss it at length, especially Maura's on her Facebook pages and stuff. But one thing that Lou and I have discussed a lot lately is that the names that kind of get thrown out there as to people who are interesting, let's say, maybe not people's of interest. I don't know if that's how you could qualify them, but understand something, that there are people that aren't public knowledge that are far more interesting than those people. So when you hear, and I don't even want to say their names, but you hear CM, which everybody in Maura's community will understand who that is. There are people that are far more interesting than he is, and it's unfortunate that we can't make him public, but just keep that in mind. It's good to know, and it's also something that's going to come up. Is why these people didn't come forward sooner, and that can be talked at length. This is kind of like the episode of Seinfeld when Jerry asks Kramer, if I murdered someone, would you tell me? And he goes, yup. A lot of us are that way. If somebody if I knew something, I would immediately go to the police. There are people that don't, and it's hard to wrap your head around, but I promise you they have the reasons. And I would say that their reasons were pretty good, wouldn't you, Lou? I mean, fairly human reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable, certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Amanda asks, are you able to get records regarding who owned a Honda of that make during that time?
No.
Tried.
We tried. The state police tried, and they're not available.
And now, if you have a person's name, can you look that, like if you have someone that you think it could be, could you look through those people's records and try to find some kind of car that fits that description?
Maybe. And we've checked all that we can check, and there's been nothing I don't know how many checks have we made, Greg, about people that have been named, and just nothing matches.
It's a little sketchy too, right, Lou? Because he's, the witnesses describe it as a gray or silver or light blue. It's at night, it's late, Honda, and they kind of describe it. And I think he was pretty positive of what he thought it was. But, a lot of cars look alike. And you'll notice that, like now I drive a small SUV and I go out in a parking lot. They all look at the same. It's like all these different car manufacturers get together and go, what shape vehicle are we going to make this, and they all make ones that look exactly the same. So there was cars there that would resemble those at that time too. So it could be mistaken. So then you don't know what you're looking for, kind of. But he was pretty certain.
Yeah, but even like at the time, you don't know something bad's gonna happen or has happened, and you're not categorizing it in your brain as something important on that level that you need to like fully describe to somebody else. And even if you try to do that, you're going to forget it. Like, it's just the way the brain works. But I think knowing like around a Honda Civic is like very good. Like, that's very good. But I will say, to Amanda's question, if, you're able to get records on who owned a Honda at that time, like if you guys can't do that, then like that's saying something. If the two of you aren't able to do that with the people that you work with and the connections and the state police, like what does that tell you though? Like, is it not that car? Was it not like registered? Was it a junker that they pulled from somewhere? Like, what's your theory on that?
Well, so
We don't know what year.
Yeah.
We don't know what color.
Yeah.
We don't know what state it might have been registered in. Was it owned by the person? Was it borrowed? Was it one of the individual's girlfriends?
Yeah. Or country. It could have been from Canada.
yeah. I mean, if I wanted your vehicle history, I can do that. And it may, I'm not sure how far back it would go, but it would give you a history of every vehicle you ever owned. But if you just shoot it out there as who owned this type of vehicle in that part of the state in that year, that's not a thing.
Greg, they do it all the time in the movies. I see it.
Yeah, they do it all the time in the movies.
You know, if we were to identify, or the state police were to identify a strong person of interest, and they happen to drive or be associated with a vehicle like that, that's strong circumstantial evidence, but it's still only circumstantial evidence. It means, I mean, nobody got a plate number. You know, that's all we know about the vehicle. So
they actually kind of semi-pursued the car afterwards.
Yeah, he did. He couldn't catch up with him. Yeah, he tried to.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Mhm.
He said they were going 65 plus,
Yeah,
and he couldn't catch it.
60. So
In that spot.
the person knew that they were being pursued.
Yeah.
Yeah, or suspected they might be. Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah, they must have been going much faster, and those are small, really rural roads.
Well, I'm sure if they saw the brake lights come on, then the other car saw them turn around.
Yeah,
that would only make sense. Because I'm sure they're looking in their mirror, and all of a sudden, oh man, they're coming after us. And
so whatever happened there, he knows that other car's coming to pick him up. So whether that other car knew he was at the Dutchburn home or not, we don't know. But here he's out in front of the vehicle, and when she turns around and looks in the rear view and sees him hammering on his brakes, he's probably out there, here I am, or something to that effect. And then he gets in the car and they're gone. And they do the loop right there. It's, what is it, Lou? A couple tenths of a mile down the road?
Yeah, if that, yeah.
Yeah.
Take 2 minutes up and
turns
back.
around, comes back. It takes out.
You know, that's our theory today. Information could come in tomorrow, which totally blows us out of the water. That's the thing about an investigation. You know, and how many times have we changed our theories over the last 10 years or whatever, Greg?
Yeah.
You know,
to initially hear this after, you know, spending all this time with Lou and saying we need one thing to sink our teeth into, one thread to pull on, and then someone tells us, I saw someone, I laid eyes on someone standing in front of Brianna's car in that literally short time frame. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. That's it. That someone saw someone there, a man there. So
wow.
Whether it's going to lead us further, but we're hoping that this, and the public knowledge of it, will take it further.
Well, that's it now.
I mean, 21 years later, we got this tip. We just got another one last week based on the chat about us being on the show, if I'm not mistaken. And then we had gotten another one that may or may not have any validity to it about, a month or so ago, maybe 6 weeks. So the information, there's still information out there. So
wow.
You know, I did a podcast with a guy, and he lied to me, and he it's a long story, and I don't know if I want to go into it now. At some point I will, but he's adamant in his podcasts that rewards don't solve anything, that rewards don't pay off, and that and maybe statistically, he you know, statistics can be misleading and situations have nuance to them. He's basically saying no one pays it out and says, here's your payment, thank you for your tip, and it solved this case. But this tip came after the reward was offered for Brianna, and they said, we don't want any money.
Oh, that's interesting.
Here's the tip, and we hope it helps you. but we don't want a thing. So that helped. They said, we sat down, we talked about it, and it was time, and we can come forward, and we jogged our memories about a few things, and they came forward. So it does help.
Wow.
Well, guys, yeah, this has been kind of a bit of a bombshell at the end of this evening here. Would love to catch up with you guys on a full episode sometime.
Yeah, let's do that.
If we can, that would be fantastic. And talk about all these scenarios and this new lead. But thank you both so much for joining us here tonight, and thank you everyone who's listening, who's watching, who's donating. We appreciate every moment of your attention on this, and just want to give a big thanks to all of our guests here tonight: Julie Murray, Bobby Tagavi, Dr. Trace Sargent, and you guys, Lou Barry and Greg Overacker, these wonderful private investigators. This is a great organization, and I hope we get as many donations as we possibly can. Very honored to be a part of this nonprofit and to be hosting this fundraiser tonight.
Tim, can I make one last comment?
Of course.
Absolutely. Thanks to Julie and Attorney Tagavi and Dr. Sargent for being here, giving up their evening just to help us out. It's really appreciated. And Lance, I've been called many, many things in my career, and a teddy bear has never been one of them, just for info.
I mean, I've heard numerous people, maybe they don't say it to your face, but I've heard numerous people use teddy bear.
No, they've said a lot to my face, and that's one of the nicer ones that's been
years
said.
ago. That would have got you thrown in the back of a cruiser.
Thank goodness I'm about 105 miles away from Lou right now.
Yeah, well, I know a dog that can find you. But thank you guys too, really, for hosting this. It's
it's our pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, it is our pleasure. We love doing this, and especially for a good purpose, it makes it even more fun. So thank you guys. Thanks to everyone listening, watching. We really appreciate all the participation tonight and with this nonprofit.
And the donations don't have to end tonight. If you donated, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. But if it comes up in conversation with family or friends or whatever over the weekend, you're like, you know what, I just happened upon this thing on YouTube and I just discovered this organization, or if you know somebody who's in a similar situation who needs this help, again, $2, $5, $10, whatever. If you just spread the word, a little goes a long way.
And this will be taped and available on your channel. Is that correct? So if somebody missed it or knows somebody wants to watch it, then it'll be available.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This presentation in its entirety will be available within a week or so on
and
the Missing podcast.
We're hoping that we'll bring in some information. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Woo. Okay, guys.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This is wild. All right. Well, great evening here tonight, and we'll connect offline and try to get you guys on for another interview.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Take care.